Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
I know I'm not the only one in the world who thinks about when something bad happens in my life, that maybe I wish it didn't happen, or that maybe it would never happen again, or perhaps that I was just strong enough to handle any type of problem that comes into play or comes into my life. I know the last part is a different type of mindset. Most people wouldn't wish for the problems to come so they can learn from them. They would wish that the problems never came so they would never have to deal with them. This is the mindset. The mindset is we don't want the problems. We don't want the troubles. We just want the goodness. But what happens when we get a life of easy or a life with no hardships? We become soft in a sense. When we have troubles, when we have failures, when we have hurdles, those callous the mind. It makes us stronger. Very similar to how if you're learning how to play a string instrument, guitar, or whatever, your fingers, they become calloused. And even though the calluses might not be significant, they allow you to play longer. They allow you to enjoy the music rather than to feel the pain in your fingertips. And this is not to say that our hands do not become callous from other activities, from labor in the garden, labor in construction, whatever it be, even the gym and gymnastics, just those things that keep us healthy, we get calluses. And it's not to say that this episode is to talk about the calluses, it's to talk about what the calluses represent. Hard work. And at one time, it was a pain. It was an agitation, things that we might not have enjoyed. But the calluses are just one little problem, a small step to the big step of life, where we think of if we didn't have to look at the little things like calluses, but we looked at challenges, we looked at failures, we looked at hardships, we looked at grief, the big things that can really jolt us awake. It can really give the mind something to think about. Well, we know the more times we do something, we become stronger in it, typically for the being of progression. However, some people can keep going on and doing the wrong thing and never learn. But it is a mindset. And the mindset comes from this idea of we can either become resilient in what we do, or we can just keep on doing things haphazardly. Well, what does the word resilience mean? What is this idea of not reaching our potential? All of this is going to lead to the conversation today and into the blog that was written, Resilience in Action, How to Rise Stronger from Setbacks. So when we start to look at this article, setbacks are going to be just a part of life. We're talking about those calluses before. They're not necessarily part of life. They're can be a part of your life, a part of your vision, a part of your dream, especially if you have a calling to play an instrument, or you have a calling to go to the gym, or if you have a calling to be a construction worker or work in the garden. Of course, we're going to naturally become hardened in those areas so our body adjusts. But our mind often doesn't get the chance to adjust appropriately. Typically, our mind just happens to get stronger along the way. We fall, we get back up. And if we don't give it any attention, typically what we're going to do is we're going to fall and we get back up. We never learn. It's when you start to meticulously look at the situation, can we learn from it? Now, of course, there's going to be situations where trauma is involved or an injury that's really going to allow our brain, our subconscious mind especially, to look at the situation and say, don't do that again. That makes no sense. Think of putting your hand in fire. Fire hot, fire bad. We know not to put our hand in fire. But when you are new into the world, you're a young child, or maybe someone who has never been around fire before, and all of a sudden you realize fire is hot, fire is bad. Let me not do that again. There are so many things that I have done growing up where I wouldn't even dare to do as an adult. And it's not the action things. It's the silly things, the things that are not wise, the things that are not going to be of any benefit to anybody, including me, where I know this is not going to make me resilient if I keep on doing it. It's just going to make me a fool if I keep on doing it. Think of it as if you know bloodletting, right? They used to use like bloodletting to get pale skin, like women would use bloodletting so they can have this beautiful pale skin because there was arsenic, I think, in the powders that they were using to put on their face when makeup was first about. And so they can have this white complexion, which was the popular look for women of whatever era it was. So they knew that the powder wasn't good. So they said, well, we can do something else. So they did bloodletting and they would get that pale skin. But they would have alternate effects, fainting, dizziness. All of these things are not good. Today, we know bloodletting is not a good idea. We don't want to just be giving our blood out for no reason for the sake of beauty. Of course, we can give our blood out for save a life or something along those lines, or money if you need some. But we're not going to just do it for doing's sake. Now we know that that's a bad thing. Bloodletting can be a bad thing. Well, sure, there can be certain things that we would do that for, maybe certain illnesses, but the majority of people, they wouldn't have to deal with that. So we understand that we learn in life that sometimes there are going to be things that just don't make any sense. Now, one of the things I'm going to present to you today is going to be maybe an eye-opening experience for you, is that quitting doesn't make any sense. What does quitting accomplish? Does quitting just mean an end to something? Does it just mean that you get an opportunity to finally relax? We don't learn anything from quitting. Our mind actually becomes callous into our progression when we quit things. Now, there's a difference between quitting and pivoting. Pivoting means that we're not quitting, but we're going to find a different direction. If you're trying to climb up a steep slope and your goal is the mountain peak, and you're like, this slope is too steep, and you choose to go a different way, you didn't give up on your goal of reaching the mountain peak. You're just pivoting, looking for an alternate solution. There's a mindset there. Now, when we start to look at what resilience means, it can be the understanding or the awareness of how long or how much you can do before you stop, or if you ever will stop. Sometimes when we're honest with ourselves and our role and our progression or our development, our personal development, we can see areas where we are resisting change. We can see areas where we are resisting defeat. We can see areas where we are resisting some level of growth. All of this is to say that we have the capacity to experience great things in life. But sometimes we have to be resilient in order to finally get to the results that we're looking for. Most people will stop at the inception of starting because it's hard, it's challenging, it doesn't feel good. Change can be challenging, but resilience, on the other hand, when we start to look at it, we can see that regardless of things that happen, especially if we have a goal of our personal development being better than where we are, we can do great things. But most people, they choose to just allow any type of hurdle or obstacle or setback to stop them in their tracks. So all of this is to say that our mind plays a critical role in if we are resilient or if we are not resilient. How can we make the mind more resilient? Well, when we're talking about this mindset for resilience, there are many different things we have to understand. We understand that the brain can see things in a plausible or implausible way. If something is possible, we might say, okay, we can do it. We can keep on pushing until we get it. And even though it might be hard, we know it's possible. Versus the alternative, if you're doing something that has never been done before, you have to not only get over your mind, but you have to get over all of the insecurities, all of the doubts from everyone else. We have to be resilient to whatever the outside stimulus besides our mind is. So now, if we're looking at resilience in two prongs, the mind can be our enemy and our environment can be our enemy. And the environment is everything around us, including the people. When we have a setback, when we have an issue, the mind is naturally going to fall into a realm and what you typically are going to feel if something happens. For example, if you stub your toe, you're going to go, ow, that hurts. Okay, there's pain that happens. You know, if you get a letter that says that you're rejected from a college that you really wanted to go, that you're going to feel sad, that you're going to feel like you should quit maybe, or you're going to feel like you're not desired, or that maybe whatever you're going for is not really going to happen, is not going to be in fruition. So yeah, sure, all of these thoughts can happen. Now, what we can do is we can allow our mind to be more resilient. It doesn't matter if our finger or toe gets stubbed, we go, I'll be okay. I'll be able to hobble off, crawl it off, whatever it be. If I didn't get accepted into this college, I'll be able to apply again next year, or I'll be able to go for this other college, or I'll be able to do some online learning or my own personal learning via books or mentors or coaches. Who knows what you can do? The limits are endless, right? The possibilities are endless. There are no true limits there. Yeah, sure, we can't go to that college right now, but maybe the no can lead to many more yeses. So many people get caught in life and the dead end streets and the dead end roads and dead end paths and the no way out where they can't see what's next. But if you were resilient, you would keep on fighting regardless of all the struggles, of all the obstacles, of all the setbacks. Now, this leads to this idea of perspective, because we understand that the mind can truly place resilience in a realm of being finite, meaning it's going to be here and there's nothing we can do about it, or it can be something where we become resilient and it's always something we can adjust. So now let's look into the term of perspective once more, because perspective is going to be your personal belief. What do you believe is possible when it comes to, are you being resilient or are you not? If a situation is dire, can we make it better? Even if it seems like nothing can change, can we have an ounce of hope, thinking or hoping or having some level of faith that things will get better? Just recently, I was in a situation where all hope was lost. And even though the prayers and the faith and the beliefs didn't work, I still kept it. I said, someone has to believe. Someone has to maintain the hope. Even if it's hopeless, even if we know the outcome, someone has to have this idea of things will get better, even if they don't. Eventually they'll get better, but then the situation that maybe you've wanted or wished for a different outcome, it didn't happen exactly how you thought. So the perspective there might have been naive in a fashion where we knew what was going to happen, but we maintained positive. And this is all to say that we know sometimes in life that things are going real bad, where things are not going to go as we have planned, and we just have to face the music. Well, if we know we're going down a path, that perspective, that mindset that we have can lead us out of the negativity, the setback a lot quicker, because we remain positive versus just kind of shutting off and saying, this is it, this is my fate. I think of the story or the experiment of the dogs that were given an electric shock whenever it was time to eat or time to play, or just periodically throughout their day. There were two dogs, one that didn't have an electric bell or like electric floor, and one that did have an electric floor. The dog that had an electric floor eventually gave up on life. They said that this is my circumstance, this is my problem, and there's nothing I can do about it because it was persistent. Yeah, sure, we can become resilient and keep on taking the shocks. We can keep on having these setbacks, but the mind at some point is going to say, what's the point? The dog did. Not saying that we have to, because in life, you're going to have way more failures than you're going to have successes. You're going to get beat down. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get turned around. You're going to get turned away. You're going to get all the things that maybe you don't want. But what I can tell you is that if you can take whatever is given, the jabs, the takedowns, the insults, the rejections, the losses, you become stronger because of it. But how does this happen in action? Because if you do something long enough, you become numb in a sense. Where a guy, for example, who's looking for a woman, maybe you go up to enough women where you don't fear rejection. You go up to a woman, you say, hey, how you doing? And if she says, I have a boyfriend or something like that, you go, oh, me too, or whatever. Or I'm glad that you found somebody. All I wanted to know was the time, right? You can figure out something else to say. Rejection doesn't matter, right? You become resilient to the setbacks of finding love, or you become resilient to the setbacks of rejection. This right here shows what type of mind that you're developing. Now, this is only in the term of relationships I'm speaking about, but anything can be in the terms of resilience and setbacks. Maybe you're in sales, and in sales, you're going to get many rejections. You're going to get many no's. You're going to get many people hanging up on you. And you're going to say, well, what is the point to this? Can you be resilient enough to keep on pushing? Can you be resilient enough to keep on going until you get the results? Now, for this, I say, let's use a little bit of common sense. Sometimes you can be in an area where it is not your genius, not your zone to be in. And I talked about this quite a bit, where you can do something for the sake of doing it and say that and keep on saying to yourself that you're being resilient and you're going to stick it out. But certain things should be natural. You shouldn't have to struggle in your relationship. You shouldn't have to struggle in your career. Not saying that there's not going to be points of setbacks. I'm just saying that it should feel right. And if it feels wrong, then that's right there is going to be a clue for you to take some level of action. Do you need to change? Do you need to adjust? All of this is going to give you a different perspective on life, because failure is something that we have to look at in the terms of resilience and setbacks. Failure is just an opportunity for growth. Yet many people take it as a direct order to stop. I failed. I must not be good at this. Let me stop. Can't tell you how many times I have done wrong things, or I have done things where I said, man, I wish I didn't do that. I have done things where if I can rewind time, I would have already rewound the time and fixed it. There are many things that happen in my life that would be classified as a failure, but I didn't allow those failures to dictate what I had for myself. Those setbacks, in a sense, just brought me one step back so I can take 2 steps forward. I can't tell you how many times people, they have a hiccup in life, and that is it. They go, oh, my life is over. There's nothing that can happen. There's nothing I can do. I need to start all over, or I need to figure something else out. But when we start all over at the inception of every setback, we are missing out on a great experience of what life is trying to show us. Because if I started a business in construction and I start doing construction and I find that I'm just not good at it, I say, okay, I'm going to quit. And I say, I'm going to start a business in solar. And I realize I'm not good at it. Okay, well, I'm going to start a business in hospitality, right? Doing hotels. And I realize I'm not good at it. Now, there's a couple of things we have to look at. Number one, why am I doing all of these things haphazardly and not really identifying what I should be doing? I'm just doing a bunch of things, right? We need to focus on that, number one. But the number two aspect is, why not stick it out? Why not learn about hospitality or construction or solar business sales? Why not learn the skills and the traits? And then get to the point of, if I feel the resistance and the resistance feels wrong, is very similar to how when you're like working out and you feel a pain in your joints or in your arm or your hand, you feel a sharp pain like a knife or a needle stabbing you. That's not a good pain. Okay. The pain where you're struggling and your muscles are fatigued and it feels like you're tired, that's a good pain. But when it feels sharp and it doesn't feel good, you don't push through that pain. You have to be able to differentiate between real pain, true pain, and then artificial pain, or the pain of fatigue, or the pain of the mind, or the pain of comfort. Those things are not going to be easy to identify, but we have to understand it. Resilience is going to be, or looking at the setbacks is going to be, hey, if I am trying to propel myself into a direction, I need to be able to know when to keep on pushing and when to stop. Because if you are over here bleeding cash and your family's struggling and you're breaking things apart, maybe it's not an opportunity for you to be resilient at that point. Maybe it's time for you to say, okay, I see where I'm having the setbacks. Let me look at an alternate solution, the pivot part, right? The goal is still the mountain peak, but we make an adjustment. Now, we can keep on doing all of these things by ourselves. We don't need, in a sense, someone to help us become stronger or become more resilient or to help us through our setbacks. But what I can tell you is, if you get somebody to help you become stronger with your personal development or your mindset, or even just this idea of you keep on failing and you don't win yet, then you're going to find a mentor. You're going to find someone who's going to help adjust your trajectory, because a rocket that's aimed downward is not going to ever make it into space. We know that it needs to be upright. We know it needs to be launched into the sky, not into the ground. That's not the direction that we want that rocket to go. Now we put that perspective into life. We need to understand the directions that we want to go. When we do the work and we make sure we do the work, then we can learn how to be resilient in the areas where we need to be resilient in. Because maybe our zone of genius is in sales, and we know that we have to sell something, whether it be a product, a business, a service. These things we know that we're going to get some yeses, we're going to get some nos. We might get a lot more nos than we get yeses. But regardless of the setbacks in the business, think of COVID, those were a lot of setbacks. A lot of people didn't make it. You could try to be resilient in the face of uncertainty, but a lot of people, what happened was they said, I'm not going to be resilient. I'm not going to have any failures or setbacks. I'm just going to stop cold turkey. And that's what most people did. Not saying that everyone did. A lot of people tried and a lot of people failed for trying. But what I can say is that those setbacks that they have endured and failed, even though they might have lost their family, their livelihood, it made them stronger into some level or some degree. Of course, they might still be dealing with the repercussions of that situation or that era. But this can be said in all aspects of life. We can become resilient, or we can have setbacks in almost any area of life. Life is not just meant to be smooth cut and start go sailing or turn key and you just turn the key and you're living in this beautiful home. You have to do the work. You have to learn how to be resilient that in the work that you're doing. So when you have a setback, those setbacks don't stop you, right? Where setback is temporary. A stopping can be permanent. Now, I'm not saying that when or if you stop, that you won't start again. But what I will say is it's more challenging to get back going when you have stopped completely. When you are running and you're running and you're running and you stop running and you start walking or you stop for a second, the moment you start trying to run again, it is a wall. It's a huge obstacle. It is damn near impossible for you to convince the mind to start running again. Now, you could have done the work to get this strong mindset of, all right, I'm going to run again, and I don't care how my body feels. But for the majority of people, once they stop and they feel how good it feels to stop, they're going to say, oh, this is nice. But life is not just about being nice and being comfortable. The resilience aspect in the setbacks is understanding what we're going for is going to require some level of dedication, is going to require some level of mindset for the good and the bad, because we need to have resilience for both. Sometimes the good can feel so good where we are doing something and we just let everything else fail, everything else fall apart. We need to look at all aspects, right? We are going to be resilient in what we do, right? We want to recognize that I understand I just broke my leg. Maybe I should take it slow. What you need there is resilience, and you need patience or persistence. There are a lot of things that need to happen when you have a setback, when you have an obstacle. Now, in this article, I give some great step-by-step guides where you can come in, learn about resilience in action and how you can rise stronger from setbacks. The article talks about so much more than what we talked about today. This is going to be an opportunity for you to get a greater experience of what resilience is, define it for yourself, figure out the destinations that you would like to go in, and then create the tools necessary for you to have the true growth that you're looking for. Now, all of this is to say that if you read this article and you find that you're not developing correctly, or if you are still having setbacks and you're not able to overcome them, of course, you can reach out to us, revenconcepts.com. You can sign up for a consultation. You can ask about resilience. You can ask about some of the setbacks you're dealing with. And then we can kind of brainstorm what's going on, because the main goal is we need to strengthen our mindset. Resilience is strengthening the mind, because when we are going to have a hurdle, when we're going to have a challenge, that right there is going to be an opportunity for us to bounce back stronger when we overcome it. And the more problems we overcome, the more situations that we can rise in rather than fall in, is going to truly show the mind what we're capable of. As I said, the link is down below for this article. Learn how you can be resilient. Learn how you can get through setbacks, because life is going to be filled with setbacks. Life is going to be filled with disappointments, but it doesn't mean that those disappointments are going to be there lifelong. So begin to change the way you think, to be more resilient, to be more invigorated, to try again, to get up again, and to keep on going until you get what you're aiming for.